On this Aircheck episode, we learn about my new co-host, Jersey Shore radio veteran Steve Raymond. Steve is not only my old boss at 100.7 WZXL, where in the 1990s we did some amazing live and local radio, but Steve also happens to be a really good friend ever since, and managed to do something that not many in radio can say. Stayed at one radio station for over 30 plus years. You'll hear some of those amazing stories. Also interviews from Metallica, KISS, David Lee Roth, Mick Fleetwood, Peter Wolf from the Jay Giles Band, and an impromptu station visit from Joe Strummer of The Clash. Let's go.
Welcome to Aircheck Season 5, a podcast about radio's personality from radio personalities. Listen as radio and TV's best on-air personalities, managers, owners, and consultants tell the tales of their storied careers with your hosts from Philadelphia, Rich DeSisto and Steve Raymond.
I'm Rich DeSisto.
And I'm Steve Raymond.
Over 30 years at South Jersey's Rock and Roll, 100.7 WZXL. Oh, if those walls could talk. Wait, they did.
100.7 WZXL.
ZXL.
Yeah, is this here 107 radio station?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, all right, well, great. I got a hold of you.
Man, this is so cool. You know, the Allman Brothers Tour is taking a break till the 27th of this month, which is just like a week away, and we've got Warren Haynes here on his break.
The commercials are over. Crank up the rock on 100.7 ZXL, playing everything that rocks.
That's just scratching the surface. Here he is. Please welcome to Aircheck, my old boss, my friend, and my co-host for Season 5, Steve Raymond.
Oh, wait, you're making me work? Paul Kelly said I should just come on Aircheck as a guest. Okay, all right, we're going to have some fun this season.
Yeah, but first, this is your episode, Steve. Let's spotlight your radio stories. And we must begin with your visit with Joe Strummer of The Clash. The guy actually bangs on the station door on a Saturday, really expecting somebody to answer, and ironically, somebody did. And it was you.
All right, well, we got to start at the beginning. This was 2002, so I'm like 12 years into this job at WZXL. I'm the program director, working 6 days a week. It's August of 2002, and I figured, you know what? I could take a weekend off. The wife and I wanted to take the Cape May Lewis ferry over to Delaware for some outlet shopping and some sidewalk sales. We're all gung-ho. And about 10 to 9 in the a.m., I get this call from my on-air weekend DJ who was actually filling in for me. It was a call saying, Steve, I'm sick. I don't think I'll make it in. The air shift was like 10 to 3. And I knew with just an hour till airtime for that person, no sense in me calling all around and begging someone to cover a shift because I'm going outlet shopping. As you know, Rich, that's what the program director does. He's the man. The systems fail. He drops what he's doing and heads to the station. And I lived an hour away from the radio station at that time.
No voice tracking in early 2000s. So
right. And we are based out of Atlantic City. A new owner came in a few years earlier and moved us from the Wildwood headquarters to Atlantic City. So I was an hour away from home. I get in that car and I'm moving in the opposite direction of where I want to be that day. I'm going Parkway North to Atlantic City, spitting nails. I was spitting nails. I'm like, what happened to me? What happened to my career? Why me? I mean, I've been doing this loyally. I've been, I've been bleeding this station for years. Why can't I just take a day off? And I'm going up the Parkway and I finally land at the station. I get on the air. And, as you know, Rich, that air studio is our happy place.
Yeah.
That's where we lose ourselves. That's our stage. When Robin Williams once said about his comedy career, I feel most comfortable and most secure and most safe when I'm on that stage with a stand-up mic. Well, that's how I am, and most radio people are when they walk into a studio. Everything else melts away. So I was fine. I was fine when I got in that studio at 10 a.m. on that Saturday morning in August of 2002. So I'm playing a record, and the DJ down the hall on our sister station sent me an intercom phone message from the studio down the hall saying, "Hey, Steve, hey, listen, there's a guy at the back door. He says his name is Joe Strummer."
My name's Joe Strummer, and I'm playing in Atlantic City tonight. And I've got my new album here, and I wanted to ask if you'd maybe plug the show and play a track off the CD. This is the program director, Contactable. Could we come in a minute while you called him?
He says he was in a band called The Clash. And I'm like, Don, man, I don't want to be here. If you're playing with me, I'm going to come down there and punch you. He goes, no, I'm serious. There's a guy at the back door. He's looking to get some airtime on a new record or something. And I thought, really, someone was really putting me on. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really tell anybody. It was just me and him in the building. So I don't know who would have, why he would be playing a joke. But I thought it was a joke. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take a walk to the back door. Sure enough, I walked to the back door, and Joe Strummer is standing at the back door with a guy, a little guy, a little shorter than me, if that's possible, a little guy with a big camera on his shoulders. His name was Dick Rude, and he was a producer. He was an actor, too, in The Repo Man.
Any other Saturday when the business office is closed and there's a tap on the window or a knock on the door, local radio station, we're not in this big, office complex, it's the direct front door from the parking lot to come into the lobby. You would ignore it. You'd be like, it's probably somebody who won a prize and they don't realize that we're not open on Saturday or.
Exactly. The part-time DJs are instructed just for safety reasons. They were instructed never to answer the door. As a matter of fact, when I opened the door, I go, I know you.
Absolutely.
How you doing, buddy? In fact, I'm 2 songs away from the Clash right now. I'm on the air, yeah.
Is there any way you can mention the show?
Sure, come on in.
Because it's hard getting an audience in Atlantic City, you know what I mean?
Yeah, come on in.
What had happened was, in 2002, Joe had formed a new band to move forward with his career called the Mescaleros, and they were playing the Trump Taj Mahal that night. They had, I don't know if it was a gimmick, but ticket sales were weak. It's not the Clash. It's Joe Strummer, who's been away from the Clash since forever, and his new band. And so I said, come on in. And he brought he called it a biscuit. He says, I got a biscuit of my new record, if you could give it a spin. And I'm like, come on in. And we got back into the studio, and I said, you're never going to believe this, Joe, but right here in the CD tray is a Clash record. Should I stay or should I go? And he says, wow. That's serendipity right there.
Wow, that's serendipity, if there ever was any. That's us doing the Spanish there.
I was not ready for this visit. I wasn't expecting it. It was a Saturday that I was not supposed to be there. I was not in a good mood. It was almost like, wow, it was meant to be. Joe Strummer of The Clash, who was inspired by Bono and the guys from U2 when they were just little teenagers trying to sneak into pubs to see the band. And the reason why the U2 guys got into music in the first place, because of Joe Strummer. He's standing on the other side of the board from me, and with the guy with the camera. And they're filming me, and they're filming the studio.
100.7 ZXL, South Jersey's rock station. And people are always asking me, saying, you're the boss. Like, why do you come in on a Saturday? And I'm saying, well, it's because I really have nothing else to do on a rainy day. And you never know when a rock star is just going to show up at the back door. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Strummer.
Good evening, everybody, or good afternoon.
How are you?
Very good. We're on a U.S. tour, and we've just come in from D.C. and Philadelphia.
Okay.
Now we're in town tonight at the Shell. Anybody listening, if you're within striking distance of Atlantic City, get on down to the Shell tonight, and we're going to rock the house.
Thanks for coming by.
Okay, you're going to spin one of these new hot tunes off the biscuit?
We'll get the new song on in a couple minutes.
Okay, great.
We didn't have camera phones then, and I didn't have a camera. So I asked him to sign my rock and roll encyclopedia, the Clash page in my rock and roll encyclopedia, and he signed it Steve, Joe Strummer, and whatnot. But as it turns out, I would find out later that I was the last in-studio interview at a radio station that Joe Strummer did while he was alive. That was a little daunting for me, and little heartfelt, and it was kind of a sad thing, but a jubilant thing. But, who would believe me about that? Well, in February of 2004, now this is a whole year, almost a whole year and a half later, I get this call from that producer who was holding that big old camera, his name Dick Rude, and he says, Steve, my movie, Joe Strummer, Let's Rock Again, has been accepted at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York City for 2004. But listen, you're all through it. I need signatures from you to to sign away your appearance. Yeah, what do they call it? But he says I'm going to
release.
Yeah, the release forms from our attorneys. So we want to include the radio station visit. And then, of course, that visit was made into a movie that was shown at the Tribeca Film Festival in August of 2004. They invited me up. We went up there, seeing my big head, my big pumpkin head on a Tribeca film screen like IMAX at that time was like, whoa. Turns out that I met the producer there, the guy that came to the station there, Dick Rude, and he says, Steve, great for you to call. I appreciate you checking it out. I appreciate, the Red Hot Chili Peppers were here yesterday in a private screening. They loved the movie. They just loved that. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, I'm looking at my wife. Whoa, I'm a somebody. And so we got watching it. And then I remember when the movie was over, I went to the men's room of the theater. I come upon two guys that said, hey, man, you were great. You were great in the movie. And I'm thinking, who's going to recognize me? And I didn't really do anything, but maybe, yeah, it was amazing. And I tell people this to this day, if you're put in a situation where you don't want to be, just go through with it anyway, because you never know who's going to show up at the back door. I spoke to Joe Strummer.
Yeah, and you made it when you get recognized in the urinal. I mean, there you go, Steve. You made it.
Right. I was recognized in the urinal in Lower Manhattan. And I was washing my hands. A guy comes right up next to me and goes, you were great in that movie. And whatever.
So we worked together at ZXL from 1990 to 1997. I think up until I left, we were still playing songs on vinyl. You just mentioned you were faxed documentation. I mean, we still didn't turn the page yet down in South Jersey. We were still back in the dinosaur days, but we transitioned to one turntable in the studio. And, it was in an area that was very dangerously located because anybody could bump it when they walked into the studio. And when we were playing a record, we made sure that somebody knew that, hey, we're playing a record, be careful. Well, there was this one time that Steve was playing a Jimi Hendrix song, and here I come bursting into the studio, and I inadvertently nudged the tone arm of the turntable. It lifted the needle off the record as it's playing live on the air, and then lands on the same song, but on the opposite side of the record, forcing the song to now be playing backwards. But remember, this is a Jimi Hendrix song. It didn't matter. Steve and I were watching this thing in slow motion once the needle landed back on the record, and then we heard the sound coming out of the speakers. It didn't change. We looked at each other and just died laughing. I mean, that's one of those like taboo moments in radio. Turned out pretty good, but what a funny moment. Didn't harm anything, but it was just, behind the scenes, here we are, we're wondering, oh my gosh, the audience, we've just lost so many people, but it's Jimi Hendrix. The song didn't change. It was still that backward masking sound.
It was amazing. Yeah, there were so many fun times during those years. I mean, it starts with locally owned radio, right? No legal department to run through, just our own filter, our own creative minds. It allowed us to be creative. I rocked the Jersey Shore bar crawl. I mean, different colored T-shirts. We had the white T-shirts with all the bars on the back with check boxes. The free OJ weekend, of course, that the OJ trial in the mid 90s, went on forever. It created reality TV. Producers are watching this thing thinking, we don't have to pay anybody. We just put something on like this, and it pays for itself with the viewers. And it did.
I think OJ is guilty.
Yeah, he's guilty. Guilty, and they wasted $10 million at first. Seeing all the evidence, I kind of thought that it was an elaborate setup scheme. But now, he's guilty.
It will be a hung jury.
We've heard your opinion. Now let's see what the jury thinks. The O.J. Simpson trial verdict, live, coming up at 1 o'clock this afternoon on 100.7 WZXL.
And, when that was happening, we knew the creative minds of Rich DeSisto and the staff of ZXL and myself. We got together and we're thinking, wait a minute, when this verdict comes down, let's do a promotion. So when he got acquitted, I ran to the Family Dollar store 2 streets over from the radio station, bought like maybe 3 or 4 crates of those little juice boxes, that kids drink with the straw. I got orange juice. I got three or four different crates of them, and I got a bunch of gloves because if the glove doesn't fit, you got to acquit. And so I went and got our prizes, and I counted the prizes that I bought, and I got the prize sheet together, and all weekend long, live local DJs. And the beauty about WZXL, and you can attest to this, Rich, we were a big station. I mean, we could attract some good local on-air talent on the weekends as well. And so,
not only the local talent on the air, but also the audience was, our backyard neighbors from the Philadelphia, and I would argue even New York and Delaware, going over the ocean. I mean, we had listeners listening to this radio station that were from bigger markets, and we knew that, and we presented the radio station with your leadership in a way that we couldn't have been, you couldn't differentiate between us and the big sticks.
It was the creativity that was allowed. We just all banged our heads together, and, OJ was acquitted. Let's have a free OJ weekend. And how about the blowout on the Bay? When I came here in 1990, now I came from Harrisburg, which is a good-sized media market, York, Harrisburg, PA, York. It's a York, Harrisburg, Lancaster market, good sizable media market, and we did promotions there too. But when I came here in April of 1990, and I learned of the blowout on the Bay, and that's where we physically commandeer one of those huge ferries from the Cape May Lewis Ferry, take it out on the water with a band, and just, have a party. That's how big we were. A Mother's Day Guns N' Roses weekend where we bought plastic water guns from the dollar store and paired it with a dozen roses from the local florist, and GNR tickets for Mother's Day. That stuff doesn't happen anymore. 34 years at WZXL, the heyday, the golden era of WZXL was that first 10 years. 1987 to 97, and very little internet interplay. We had to create the product, and like I said, the talent level, full-time and part-time, was, in my opinion, big time, but the creative minds came with it, and that's what I miss most.
ZXL, your South Jersey concert connection, wants to put you in the seats of your favorite concert events, but you need to be awake.
Hi, is Larry Turfish there, please? This is Steve from WZXL.
He's upstairs. He's sleeping.
And make sure we don't catch you with your pants down.
Oh, he's just got to put his pants away.
Yeah, make sure he puts his pants on because, it's radio.
Instead, here is how you do it.
Hey, Larry.
What's up, man?
We're going to see the Chili Peppers. Cool. Next week, we've got the Rock Limo, so that'll take care of transportation. You don't have to worry about that.
All right, man.
And, hey, have a good time at the show.
Yo, thanks, man.
You said Guns N' Roses, the concert tickets in general. We gave away so many concert tickets. We were so fortunate to not only have our neighboring Philadelphia venues, but Atlantic City started to bring big name acts in. And then we had our various clubs in South Jersey that were starting to bring bands in. I remember Peter Frampton.
If you want to go down and run some of the names off, or...
Well, we're going to do like one, right?
Yeah, you can do one. This is Peter Frampton.
You're listening to
100.7 WPCN.
Points. You say 100.7.
Yeah, right.
ZXL.
Atlantic City, South Jersey's rock and roll.
Okay.
Thank
you. All right. Yeah, because I think I did some over the phone the other day as well.
Yeah, some of them came out okay, and some of them were a little, how the phone sounds.
Right. Hi, this is Peter Frampton. You're listening to 100.7 WZXL, Atlantic City, South... Right, okay. Hi, this is Peter Frampton. You're listening to 100.7 WZXL, Atlantic City, South Jersey's rock and roll.
I remember Kansas. I remember Sam Kinison one year.
Hi, this is Sam Kinison, and I'm in South Jersey. I listen to one station. I rock with it. 100.7 FM, WZXL. Damn it. We're on a roll, too. All right. Try it again. Hi, this is Sam Kinison, and you're listening to the Quiet Sounds by the Sea on 107 FM, WZXL. Now, South Jersey's rock and roll. What do you think you're getting? Oh!
I mean, it was just being in a spot that we were able to take advantage of and leverage that for the radio station's benefit.
Especially in the Wildwood days, you're just mentioning, we had the famous Block That Rocks. It was just a series of clubs. One club featured dance. Another club, the Oasis, featured live rock bands. I mean, these were A-lister bands. I remember 38 Special and coming to the radio station first, and then me going to this club on Pacific Avenue in Wildwood at night. It was a Friday night, and I got up there on stage because, the club owners who we knew and loved said, "Hey, man, you introduce them. This, it's your radio station event." I got up there on the side of the stage as 38 Special. I mean, I had all their albums in college. I get up there walking up the side rail on the side of the stage, and Jeff Carlisi, the guitar player, is standing there just kind of fiddling with his guitar. He looks up at me and goes, "Hey, Steve." I go, "Hey, Jeff."
Yeah.
I go, "Have a great show." For me, it was like my Oz. As you remember, Rich, even in Wildwood, Boscov's in Egg Harbor Township was the local Ticketron ticket outlet for on sales. And you want your good tickets. There's no, internet scalping those days. There was no, bots buying all the tickets. All these live and local brick and mortar ticket counters actually, encouraged the local media outlet, being a radio station, of course, to, we're going to have them line up. Store opens, the department store opens at 10. Tickets going on sale.
Van Halen on tour for the first time in 3 years. And they're coming to the Spectrum in Philadelphia, April 28th. This Saturday morning at 10, tickets go on sale for Van Halen as the Balance Tour stops at the Spectrum April 28th with special guest, The Cult. We'll see you in the Shore Mall parking lot Saturday morning at Boscov's. The ZXL Concert Patrol will be hanging out with you in line, giving you a chance to win CDs and cassettes.
We get there, me and one of the other DJs, whoever it was, would get in that van at 6 a.m. We would stop and get 3 or 4 coffee barrels that, they have there. We went to the dollar store, got cups and stirrers and Dunkin' Donuts. It was just an amazing, magical time. It was just crazy.
Yeah, where Boscov's was in that mall, it really became a staging site for many of these types of connections to our audience. I remember when we heard Jerry Garcia passed away.
That was 1995. I was on vacation at my parents' house in Rhode Island, and I'm coming back on Interstate 95 through like New London. It's vivid. Around New London, Connecticut, and the radio announcement comes on: Jerry Garcia has died. And then I don't know if you called me or maybe you didn't, but you took it upon yourself to stage a Jerry vigil on the lot of that very same Ticketron ticket outlet, Boscov's, in that Shore Mall, which, by the way, was 35 miles away from the WZXL studios because we cared. And Jerry was a legend, and it was a huge loss. And you went up there with the van, and we touched listeners, and more importantly, they touched back.
Jerome John Garcia of the Grateful Dead, Jerry, to his family and fans, passed away earlier today.
We heard late afternoon. I announced it immediately after planning it, and it was a full moon that night, and there was over 200 deadheads partying, crying, playing music.
Jerry's played in a band ever since he picked up the guitar at age 15. The Grateful Dead has been his home for the last 30 years. And tonight at 10, ZXL will feature an hour of the Grateful Dead as we mourn the loss and pay tribute to Jerry Garcia.
Acoustic guitars everywhere, a lot of tie-dye, a lot of hacky sax. And the Atlantic City Press was there, and we got front page news the next day. So
absolutely,
wasn't looking to do that, but it was a moment, and it was a proud moment for us as being our audience's number one favorite radio station and doing something to pay them back.
When you touch people, it comes back, and so it comes back tenfold. Front page, above the fold coverage. We're touching emotions, and that's why I got into the business.
Well, so many of those great times, though, Steve, as you mentioned, the Atlantic City memories are embedded in our brains, especially that telethon. Well, maybe we'll get into that. But after I left in 97, you continued your tenure and the rest of your career at ZXL, adding more notches to your belt with great local radio promotions like Bike Bash, which was huge. I remember you telling me all about those Bike Bashes every year. Orion Fest with Metallica on Bader Field. Man, I wish I was there for that. Your interactions with several notable musicians, all your local heroes, including Lars Ulrich from Metallica that weekend of Orion Fest, Don Felder of the Eagles, Vivian Campbell, Ricky Medlock of Skynyrd, Don McLean, Rod Argent, Ace Frehley of KISS. But before we get into those moments, though, let's go back to your beginning, because everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has that story as how they were bitten by the radio bug. What's yours?
12 years old. Now, I don't know where it came from. I don't know if I stepped on the bug. I don't know if he flew in a window at night when I was sleeping. I don't know if it lived under my bed. But around 12 years old, I wanted to be a DJ. In my earlier years, earlier than 12, I always wanted to be a fireman. But I had a little cassette player and a little microphone that came with the cassette player, and I had a little desk lamp microphone that had that coil, so you can, if you're reading at night or something and you're working at your desk or something, you can coil that light right over onto what you're doing. It's like a coil. So what I did was I plugged in the cassette deck microphone, and I coiled it around and taped it to the top of this desk lamp to make it seem like it's a real radio station microphone studio, you know? And I had all these 45s. You know, I didn't have two turntable, so I had to play one and take the next one off and then introduce the next song. And I had to break for commercials. I had the newspaper. I would read newspaper ads live over my little desk lamp microphone. I remember, putting the speaker, my stereo speakers, because it was coming through my stereo speakers. I remember putting the speakers outside my bedroom door, so I feel like there's, people are hearing it outside my bedroom. And I remember my mother yelling down, "Can you turn that down just a little bit? Keep doing what you're doing, but can you just kind of turn that down?" It was, I think I had Black Dog. The 45 Atlantic Records Black Dog. And I think I played that, introduced that, had no intro on it. And I think that's when, can you turn down the music? So anyway, that's the career started at 12 in my bedroom radio station. I know a lot of people. I read a lot of articles. I'm totally engulfed since I got into this business all those decades ago, but I'm totally engulfed in the trade magazines and featured articles. And this is why the Air Check podcast so attracted me, because I've been reading these articles on people like us, and we all kind of share the same humble beginnings. We got bit by the bug and we couldn't do anything else. And we formulated these fake make-believe radio stations. I've talked to some guys who had real pirate radio stations set up by people in their family that worked at radio and TV stations. They would set them up with real transmitters. So we all started doing it the same way. And if you love what you're doing and you're fortunate enough to do it for a living, you've never worked a day in your life.
So who were you listening to back then on the radio that was contributing to that bug?
The big station near us was WDRC. AMs were, of course, the big top 40 stations that you listen to on transistor radios, because that's all we had at that point. Big D, 1360 out of Hartford was the big one.
WDRC in Hartford.
As a matter of fact, the former Philly radio guy, Bob Craig, was the midday DJ on DRC that I used to listen to every day, and he had certain features and whatnot.
That is the super compatible Barry White from WDRC. Can't get enough of your love, babe. Where today, try and get enough of this. Thought I'd recommend to my gluttons and gourmets a chicken liver and melted Hershey bar sandwich on Italian bread, along with a mixed glass of vinegar and butterscotch, because it's lunchtime! WDRC.
And the afternoon guy was the Prince, Dick McDonough, and he's the guy that would broadcast live. They had this mobile Studio D, which I loved, because it was a real trailer. It was a trailer with turntables and a board and a microphone. It's like a real radio station in a trailer on site doing remotes. This isn't a card table with roller banners and, a canopy tent. This is real stuff. If it was within biking distance, I would show up at these. And so our town had what's called the Shad Derby celebration in Windsor, Connecticut. And DRC was there with the mobile Studio D. And, radio geek me At 15, I didn't care about girls and the Shad Derby Queen. My nose was pressed against that glass of the radio broadcast. And this guy, Prince Dick McDonough, was on there, and I was shy. I didn't talk to him or I didn't watch him or anybody. I just watched him introduce songs, talk on the radio. And then I sent him a couple of fan letters over the years, mainly to ask if I could stand in the Mobile Studio D trailer with him while he was on the air. And we never connected on that, but that's how important it was to me. Bob Craig, of course, did the midday show. He went on to later fame and a lot of success at WMGK when it was Magic in the 70s. They did the 70s format for a while when it was popular back in that day. And Bob was the PD, and it just, man, his voice was just golden. You know, I could never sound like him, but his voice was golden. I know I think he does a jazz show now on WRTI, the Temple Station. When he came here, I looked for him on Facebook. I want to connect with him on Facebook, telling him about me, and then telling him where I was. And he says, "Well, Steve," he messaged me back. "I hope it was a good thing that I inspired you, and if not, I'm sorry." And that type of thing. Yeah, these guys are just all great. 13 years old, that was the early 70s. So at 13 years old, my dad was convinced to take me for an audition at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. The same building in 750 Main Street, Hartford. What a memory, 750 Main Street. It was in a tall skyscraper in downtown Hartford. WDRC AM and FM was on a different floor. And I went for my audition. I read copy in the studio like I did with my desk lamp microphone the previous couple of years before. So I had practice. And the guy, the CSB teacher who guided me through, is, "Man, you never know. You are such a quiet kid until you hit that mic switch. I can't believe how you read that copy." And my father's laughing. He's, "Oh, I know. He really wants this," and da 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 da. And then from there, we went and sat down in the president's office. His name was Dick Robinson, and
We love Dick Robinson. Oh yes, we do. We like the way he talks. I swing for you. We're sure that's why you listen to Dick Robinson. We love you.
Hi there. Good evening to you. Dickie Robinson right here till 1 o'clock in the morning. More minutes of the music you like most.
And he had pictures all over the wall with him and the Beatles and Cher, I remember. And he was putting the hard sell on us. But remember, I'm 13. It was a 13-week course. And so I'd still be 13 when I graduated. And I'd still be, going to 8th grade. So, I mean, my father convinced me. He says, "Why don't you hold off now? And, when you go to college, you can study communications and get interested in broadcasting then. And then you can kind of just, you'll have all this experience just when you're practicing that, go through it, through college, and you're good to go." And that's what happened. At 18, I went away to school, York College of Pennsylvania. I just had to find where I saw the antenna on the building. You know how radio people are? Oh, they see a radio antenna. I got to go over there and check out this station or go watch them or something. As I was still in my 13-year-old brain at college at 18.
You are listening to 88.1 WVYC, the voice of your college.
Well, WVYC gives the students a voice.
When they come into the studios look like a regular radio station. They're going to use equipment that they are going to see at the next level.
I went over to the college radio station, and it was summertime. I was taking some summer courses before the fall semester started, and I met the outgoing general manager who had just graduated from there as a radio guy. And he took me under his wing and just showed me the ropes of a real radio studio. And after several weeks of practice, I became like one of the first incoming freshmen to get on the FM airwaves. They had an AM carrier current station that played through the cafeteria and the dorms. That's where you got all your practice in. And you played top 40 and you got used to announcing and reading news and honing your craft. With all that summer experience I had with this one guy who took me under his wing, I started on the air my freshman year in fall semester, which was unheard of at that time. And it was just amazing.
So the college got you on the air, but your first real radio gig, what was it? Where was it? And what about your first blunder? Because as a college kid, you get that opportunity. You're still sowing your oats. You're still, trying to find your way. Your hands are shaking still a little bit. So when you get that first radio gig and it's the big time, Talk a little bit about that, where that was, and then that first blunder.
That first semester, freshman year of college, going on the Real Live FM station, 10 watts of stereo rock. No, I think it was mono. It was 88.1 FM, but it went out to the community about 3 miles from our antenna. And I remember my first shift, the station manager, who, again, an outgoing student, general manager of the station, was in the studio with me my first break, and my right hand was so shaky putting the needle on the album, on the vinyl, because don't forget, we had 2 turntables then. We didn't even have carts, and we picked our music from the record library across the hall, and it was all albums, all vinyl, all album art that we could stare at and, clean our weed. If it's a double album, you just, the seeds fall down the middle, you hold it open, you shake it down. But anyway, he came in and said, Steve, relax. You got this. You're shaking. Look at here and try. You're never going to put the needle on the album that way. Just relax. You sound good, and let's just see where it goes. And you sound good. Just relax a little bit. Your hand is a little bit too shaky. And so that was that. By the way, remember those big, loud, clanky AP wires?
Oh, yeah.
Those big machines that just, and if something serious happened, those bells, bang, 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 it's like, while I was on the air at 88.1 in those years, the 2 clanking moments where the AP machine just went bonkers. Ronald Reagan was shot by Hinckley coming out of that that hotel. And then the second clanking and just craziness from that machine that I thought it was going to shake itself off the floor mounts was the John Lennon assassination, Mark David Chapman. That was in 1980. But anyway, I started firing tapes out to the local commercial radio stations. So by the spring of 1979, I got a call from a local AM station in town, and they're like an AM top 40 that wanted me for weekends. And so my first day of work as a paid professional DJ was Easter Sunday, 1979, York, Pennsylvania. The program director was an amazing man. He left me a nice long memo of you're going to go on the air at 6. For an hour, you're going to play music and be Steve. I couldn't even be Steve Raymond then because there's another Raymond full-timer in the market. So I had to change my name. My wife will want to tell you it was Randy Bell. Yeah. Anyway, my first ever shift paid as a commercial radio DJ was Easter Sunday, 1979. I did an hour on the air, 6 to 7A. Easter Sunday, so no one's, going to hear me. And then 7, the Catholic church service from the big Catholic church in town paid for commercial time to run their Sunday Mass, Easter Sunday Mass. So no problem. You just, as you know, Rich, you just pot up they're on one of the pots and you just pot them up and they're connected on their end and they're broadcasting the church service, which allowed me to go make coffee in the other room or read trade magazines or whatever I did. I remember that first Sunday, my first ever air shift was over, and the church service, I potted them up, and I'm in the studio, and I'm just looking through the record bins and getting myself acclimated. We had to do transmitter readings at that time, and all of a sudden, dead air. Now, I'm not touching the board. I'm not playing anything. It obviously went dead. The ISDN line connection, or however they did it back then in 1979, disconnected from their end. Dead air. So what does a DJ think to do? Eliminate dead air. The first record in the first bin that I could reach for to get something on the air, George Harrison's My Sweet Lord. Church service goes dead on their end. And then the first 45, I can frantically, queue up and get some audio on the air. George Harrison, My Sweet Lord. My sweet Lord. He's singing My Sweet Lord. And the church is calling me and screaming every curse word that you could think of. And I'm thinking, this is a church group calling me. And they're screaming at me and you're yelling at me, we pay big dollars. You're screwing it. What is this music you're playing? I said, well, you went off the air. I got dead air here. So unless you fix it from your end, what are we supposed to do? Be dead air? And then finally, and he's, we get that garbage off the air. All he heard was, My Sweet Lord. He's calling My Sweet Lord garbage. I'll never forget. I told one of the guy, Rod Argent. I did an interview with him just a couple of years ago. He played here, Ocean City, a couple of years ago, and I told him the story that first couple of weekends on the air of that station. And when I went in for my interview, they were trying to, sheepishly tell me how much money, is minimum wage. I think it was $2.31 then, and they're sheepishly saying, look, it's $2.31 an hour. You can make more at McDonald's, and And I said, I don't care what it pays. Did I just hear the abbreviated version of Hold Your Head Up by Argent? And the PD started laughing. He goes, yeah, we had to do that. And I told Rod Argent that just a couple years ago.
Hello, it's Rod Argent here from England.
I got to share my personal Argent radio story with you about that song. When I first got my first paying job in radio back in the last century, I'm getting up there in age. It was the 70s disco era. 70s disco was king, and this station was an AM disco top 40 station that also dabbled in rock. I sat down for that interview, came in. The boss was like half apologizing for the $2.31 an hour minimum wage. And I had to tell him, I had to stop him in his mid-sentence. I had to tell him, I said, I don't care about the pay, but did I just hear the station play the 3-minute shortened version of Hold Your Head Up? How about apologizing for that?
He started laughing as well, because as you know, we appreciate the 6.5 minute, 6:32 minute version of the real song of Hold Your Head Up. So anyway, Rod Argent got a thrill out of it 40 years later when I told him that story.
So you landed at ZXL in the summer of 1990. I remember you sitting in the receptionist desk chair wearing a Boston Red Sox cap. And I'm like, no way. I'm a Yankees fan. So here you are. No idea who you are. You weren't even introduced. You were just there. I was on the air coming down the hall for something else. And there you are. And then I was told who you were. And I'm like, oh, no, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. But it ended up working just fine, actually, just the opposite. So talk about that ride from York, PA on that Easter Sunday to the Jersey Shore, because that's the part of the story that created the very solid foundation that you live from every day, not just professionally, but privately as well.
During my college days, my last year of college, I worked at Starview 92 as a part-time college kid. And I got my first job. I was sending tapes out everywhere. I applied to Starview because I wanted to stay there. I just loved the station and the people. It was just a laid back rock and roll, album rock atmosphere. And, it was album AOR radio in its heyday with some notable personalities I didn't want to leave there.
The Starview 92.7 DJs, remember them well. You'll see one of them weeknights between 6 and 7 during Star Trek The Next Generation on Fox 43 beginning February 4th. Remember the most wanted DJ's name and song of the day. Then listen to Dave and Colleen the next morning. When you hear the song, be the ninth caller, name the most wanted DJ, and you'll win dinner for two.
They deemed me as not experienced enough in production, full-time production, to someone else got the shift or whatever was open. And so I flew tapes out everywhere, and I landed in Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania at an AM daytimer. And it was WPCN 960 AM. And it was one of the best experiences of my career because these people, when I came there, I had all this experience of, working in York, Harrisburg, Lancaster, at that time, bigger market. So when I got there, they hired me for mornings and total hands off. I did an Andy Rooney impersonation. I took phone calls. I was a Howard Stern wannabe. I would drive up to the top peak of Camelback Mountain every day to listen to Howard and just listen to him and just hear him and steal his bits and, that type of thing.
You and everybody else.
Yeah, he was on WNBC at that point, so you can hear it pretty good from the Poconos. So I wanted to be Howard, and I reflected that. We did bits, we did scripts. Me and the PD love my creativity, so we did Winds of Wacko because there's the Winds of War docu-series that was playing on TV then, and we did the Winds of Wacko and did a whole radio drama that you're never going to hear today. And it was just an amazing experience. The people, the owners were local, and they just were so giving to me. And this woman getting ready for work, she's a hairstylist. She would call me every morning. getting her kids ready for school. And, she loved Come On Eileen by Dexys Midnight Runners. I remember that was the big song in 1983. This is 83. Remember MASH was going off the air? The big grand finale broadcast was February of 1983. I had promotions rolling around in my head. Why don't we do a MASH party? Have the listeners dress as their favorite MASH character, fatigues and, army helmets and whatever they've got, and make it a MASH farewell party at this one bar. And so our midday girl was friends with this girl who was always calling me in the morning. She knew who this person was, calling me in the morning every single morning to win prizes and request Come On Eileen by Dexys Midnight Runners. I meet her. She's a Pat Benatar looking girl. So I'm like, whoa, I'd like to meet her. I'd like to maybe go out with her. Next time she calls me on the morning show, I'm going to ask her out and all this stuff. And turns out that was my future wife, Marla.
Wow.
And she grew up there. She listened to the show. And so I'm another one of those radio guys that met his wife now of 32 years or 38 years. She's going to kill me. 38 years.
You better get it right.
You better get it right. From that AM daytimer, I wanted more, as you know how we are. So I was covering commissioners' meetings as the morning Howard wannabe. They always also sent me to county commissioners' meetings to get news bites for the news guy. And that was part of my job, and it was a great experience. But as I was sitting there, I sat next to the news director of the big FM Top 40 station in Strasbourg, and I looked at her and I said, I want to work at your station. You do? Well, just call so-and-so. He's the program director. Just call him. We're looking for people. And so naturally at that time, no cell phone. I had to call him on a landline, and with a rotary dial. It's like weird. But he said, when can you come in for an interview? And I said, how about tomorrow morning after my shift? He goes, fine. And so basically I went down there and got that job at WSBG 93.5 in Stroudsburg. And it was called The Power of the Poconos. And for good reason. It was the best thing since sliced bread in that town. And I was so proud to be on it. They hired me for nights. We're right on the border of New Jersey. And at that time, there was an unknown band, Sayreville, New Jersey. It's directly across the state on Interstate 80, right outside my window there in Stroudsburg. But this unknown band rehearsing in their garage, they finally pressed a 9-inch vinyl, one of their songs, and they needed to shop it. They didn't have a record deal. So I was coming in to work. I would show up at 4:45, 5 for some production and go on the air at 7. And my PD was waiting for me and said, yes, this artist drove in this little beat up green Le Mans boat car, showed up and asked me if we could give this a couple spins. So can you give this a couple spins? And I say, yeah, well, who's the artist? And I'm reading a record. Well, she said, the artist is Jon Bon Jovi. He's out of New Jersey. And from here, he was going to ZZO in Allentown. He's just going one station after the other to self-promote. They just cut this record out of their garage, basically. And no deal yet. No, I didn't meet John. And I know John and his brother, I think it's Matthew, Matthew was like his PR guy, I guess, self-appointed. And they drove all around to the stations in Jersey and Northeast PA, WSPG, ZZO, I'm sure, the Scranton Wilkes-Barre stations, anybody who would play this first record. And man, Runaway was it's my favorite Bon Jovi song to this day. So that was my close encounter of almost meeting a rock star, visiting a radio station in a beat down car. And I would meet him with that Starview 92 station years later. Now this would have been 1984. I would meet him in 1986, actually middays in 87. So it's like 1987, Bon Jovi at the height of their career, Slippery When Wet was the album they were promoting. Played Hershey Park Stadium. And I remember the record rep. I remember the record label, my station allowing me to get the backstage passes to meet him, meet the band. And the first thing I wanted to say to him was, hey, John, do you remember a station in Stroudsburg, PA, WSBG? I was doing nights and I was the first guy to spin your Runaway 9-inch vinyl. He goes, really? He goes, yeah, I remember a station in Stroudsburg. And he goes, well, thanks. And that was it. That was it. He didn't remember me, or he didn't meet me, but he met my PD. And
you were part of the airplay for him.
I was a part of it. And when you're a part of it, you never work a day in your life. And you never want it to end either. For me, there's no plan B. This is my livelihood. Howard Stern does it. All those other guys do it. Cousin Brucey does it. I want to do it, but this is what I do. And, this is what you would agree that this is what we do and what we do best. And we really aren't programmed to do anything else.
Well, you almost had another one of those musicians knocking on the radio station's front door. Ed King from Lynyrd Skynyrd. When you the earlier days of ZXL, he became part of your story as well. Talk about how Ed King and you kind of got together for I think more than one occasion, but that first time.
Talk about a friendship, an industry friendship, kind of at a distance. And this is how it went. I was on the air. Our PD Ron came into the studio. I know it was a Tuesday because that's when the new records came to the radio station. Ad Day, remember Ad Day? So Ron Bowen came into the studio, and we had just gotten the new CD promo copy of Lynyrd Skynyrd 1991. That was the album. That was the year. That was the album and the first track. So I play it and I talk about Lynyrd Skynyrd, and man, I love this band. And I've been playing their records since I was a kid. And I was going off on it a little bit. Before I know it, Ron is coming into the studio again. Ed King lived in our area. He lived in Belle Plaine, New Jersey. I didn't know it, but he's driving around and he hears me playing the new Lynyrd Skynyrd 1991 promo disc. So he calls the station and tells Ron that he wants to stop by the station. He's driving around. He heard the DJ playing it. He wants to stop in. He'll do an interview. Again, I'm in a fog. Is this really happening? And so I play the song, and about 20 minutes later, he comes into the studio. He pulls right up. I see him pull up out front. You remember that window over looking out onto the main drag there, and he pulls up that white Chevy Blazer he had. I remember, and you look in his car on the dashboard, he had a sticker, Lynyrd Skynyrd 1991. It's so vivid. Anyway, he came into the studio, Ed King, black t-shirt and bright pink, neon pink shorts. And we get on the air, we're talking about things and talking about his career. And, he started with the strawberry alarm clock, incense and peppermints. He says, let's not talk about that on the air, though. I don't want to talk about the strawberry alarm clock. Please don't talk about that. I wrote that song, and, I was one of the co-writers. And I don't want to talk about that, incense and peppermints. I want to talk about Lynyrd Skynyrd. So it turns out, I said to him right on the air, I said, nice shorts, by the way. He goes, I coach my sons in Middle Township Little League. You live here? He goes, oh, yeah, I've lived here for years. So I heard you playing it. And I said, I immediately called New York to get you the entire full length of 1991 sent down so you guys could just enjoy it or maybe give copies away of it. And so they're on the way. And that was Ed King. And from that time forward, he would call me on the request line. I pick up, and it's Ed King. He goes, Steve-O, what are you doing tonight? Because they were playing the Spectrum. What are you doing tonight? I said, I have an event. And I did. I think I was on the Block That Rocks. I don't know what I was doing, but I had a gig, a $50 gig, $50 cash. I can't go to a concert tonight. But anyway, he says, Steve, I want you to come to the show tonight. I want to introduce you to the guys, Johnny Van Zant and Gary Rosington. I'm thinking of all these guys. What's the matter with me? I just think of this to this day. What's the matter with me? I didn't go. I said, man, Ed, I can't. I got a remote. I got an event myself. I can't make it. He goes, oh, Steve-O. Oh, well, maybe next time. But I really wanted you to meet the guys, and really? So just times like that where we connected and we had some real connection. That's the key, Rich. Just real connection. Denny Lane of Paul McCartney and Wings. Steve, keep my phone in your contacts. I live in Florida. I'm going to be playing Jersey a lot. He played the Levoy Theater in Millville, and I think right before the pandemic in 2019, and I hosted that show. I hung out with him downstairs, and we're talking about Paul McCartney. Do you still keep in touch with Paul? And yeah, I had to talk to him today about using one of his songs and stuff like that. He was such a humble heart and just a kind, down-to-earth gentleman. But what he said to me on the phone when we got done with the interview, the phoner, Steve, I'll tell you what, hold on to my number. It's my number. I live in Florida. Hold on to my number for the next, because I'm going to be coming back again. And when you hear I'm coming back or you're cutting a spot for one of my shows, call me. We'll do a phone. That's how it was.
Let me throw some other names at you. A little rapid fire. Paul Kelly and I did this with some previous guests on Air Check, because you still have a nice laundry list of encounters with artists through the years when I was still with you at ZXL and after. So the first thing that comes to mind, just give me a little tidbit of your connection to these musicians. David Lee Roth.
David Lee Roth, when he called me Steve.
Diamond David Lee Roth, how you doing, man?
Live in the afternoon sky with Steve. How you doing?
Good. So, like I say, I'm leafing through your book here, Crazy from the Heat. And, of course, you're a chick magnet. I was going to ask you what that's like.
And, well, no, I think that might have just been the selection process of the pictures in the book, as opposed to just a couple of, the usual, oh, here we are smiling.
I answered the phone because he called in because he had a book coming out in 1992. So the record label says, "Hey, Steve, David Lee Roth, has got a new book coming out. Can you do a phoner?" I said, "Absolutely, David Lee Roth. Are you kidding me?" And then again in 1996, he called for something else. Oh, he was at that point kicked out of Van Halen. And remember the controversy at that time? Remember Van Halen, the guys, Eddie Van Halen and Alex and Michael Anthony invited David Lee Roth up to the podium to accept an award, like an MTV award or something.
I think we're here to present Best Male Video of the Year award. Right, Dave? Oh, Dave.
No. Instead of the best award thing, we have to make an announcement. We have to address a subject here. This is the first time that we've actually stood on stage together in over a decade.
This was an April Fool's interview. So I asked the record rep, I says, "Hey, listen, it's April Fool's Day. I'm going to arrange my questioning like he's rejoining the band. He's getting back together with the guys."
Last time we talked, you were in negotiations with a hell of an all-star band. Can you talk about your players yet?
Well, at this point in time, we were just starting to do demos.
And he's, without thinking about it, he's not saying no, but he's talking about, well, I love the musicians. He thinks I'm asking him about his new band. So it was great. And he really played along.
Mick Fleetwood.
He came out with his book, his first autobiography in 1992. And again, through the record label, I got word, "Hey, Mick Fleetwood's got a book. Are you interested in a phoner?" Interviewing him on the phone. Yes.
Now, when you started with Fleetwood Mac back in 1967, you guys had a strong blues base of players from Peter Green, Jeremy Spencer in the late 60s. What was it like when Fleetwood Mac had their mid-70s pop explosion? Was that a major adjustment back then?
No, it wasn't. You see, yet again, people forget that it was all a lot of music had gone under the bridge by then.
Right.
In terms of the original Fleetwood Mac, absolutely correct, was very much a blues-based band. It was a blues band, period.
Tony Banks
of Genesis, soft-spoken, and he was working on, I think, a solo project at that time, and we were just talking about Mike Rutherford, Mike and the Mechanics, Mike doing his own thing. And is this what rock stars and successful bands do? Is this why you do? You take a break from your main gig, you do a little side hustle, and you see what you got by yourself? Because that's what we do.
I love doing solo records. It's a chance to sort of follow your own ideas right the way through.
Right.
You can write what you want and everything. Genesis effort is a very collaborative effort. With all three of us working. All the songs you hear on Genesis records come out of group improvisation, and the three of us being in the room together. And I love doing that as well, really. So it's a big contrast, the way of working, and both are fun to do.
This next guy, I remember when he came to Wildwood on the Block That Rocks, he had just joined this famous band, and I had an opportunity to speak with Greg Allman at the Taj Mahal, I think around the same time, but Warren Haynes came to the radio station.
The Allman Brothers tour is taking a break till the 27th of this month, which is just like a week away, and we've got Warren Haynes here on his break.
That was the same day. Warren Haynes came that day. It was the day of the OJ chase.
One thing we have been noticing, again, it's a very slow pursuit, followed by numerous highway patrol vehicles, but because of the intensity, it seems like people have heard about what's going on.
We're taking him down to the Block That Rocks to play this corner bar, like a happy hour performance. He just came with his guitar and himself, went up there on stage and played like he was playing to, arena. of, like 15,000 people. And there's like maybe 6 people sitting around a bar, all watching the TV sets of this white Bronco on a freeway.
Poor Warren.
In Los Angeles. Warren Haynes is playing. No one's watching him. I'm watching him. And then when he finishes the song, I'm the guy that's clapping. And then a couple other spatters have clapped. But, talk about timing.
Don Felder of the Eagles.
Don Felder had him in the studio as recently as 2012. He was Tom Petty's guitar teacher. When Tom Petty was a little kid growing up in Florida.
Wow.
Gainesville, Florida. And Don Felder, before he joined the Eagles and had to make some money playing guitar, because that's all he wanted to do with his life, he put an ad in the paper, local paper, Gainesville paper, anyone needing guitar lessons, for $20 a week or whatever. And who answered the ad? Tom Petty.
Tom Petty was a young kid growing up in Gainesville, Florida, that his first guitar teacher noticed his musical gift. And I am personally honored to have that guitar teacher sitting 2 feet from me right now in this rock and roll radio romper room. It's Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, Mr. Don Felder. Welcome.
Thanks. It's great to be here in Atlantic City.
Probably not a lot of rock fans know that before the Eagles and before there was a Crosby, Stills, and Nash, there is actually Crosby's, Nash, and Felder, right?
Yeah, one of the first gigs I had when I got to California was actually playing Stephen Stills' parts in Crosby, Nash, and went on and did that for about a year there before I joined the Eagles.
Ace Frehley of KISS.
Ace Frehley was so colorful. Came to Millville, the Levoy Theater, and I hosted that show it had to be 2021 or 2022. And so we talked about, so was it true back in the 70s, Kiss Alive and all that, you guys could pick up any girls you want. And he goes, oh, let me tell you about girls. We had what was known as the chicken coop.
We used to have a room, we nicknamed the chicken coop. And our bodyguards used to bring girls back to the hotel after the show. And, when we got back to the hotel and taken off the makeup and showered, there was a room filled with like 20, 25 girls. And, just use your imagination what happened later on.
The chicken coop. And I said, so let me ask you, you can have a chicken coop tonight because I'm coming. He goes, no, I don't do that anymore. I'm too old.
Yeah,
I'm too old.
Yeah. Peter Wolf, Jay Giles Band.
So Peter Wolf grew up here's a great story for Peter Wolf. He grew up in the Berkshires of Northwest Massachusetts. As a little boy, his babysitter was the noted artist Norman Rockwell.
My dad used to leave me off at his studio.
Wow.
When he would, we lived in the area where Norman Rockwell had a studio, and he would drop me off so he can do errands. And I would sit and talk with Norman, and I really didn't know who he was. And he had a son named Peter that was exactly my age.
Right.
And so he would sit there and sometimes sketch me, and I loved drawing and painting.
Okay, so you were the kid in that famous doctor's office portrait with your pants down, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Ready to get the injection.
I thought so.
Vivian Campbell.
Vivian Campbell, I interviewed him back in the early 90s, and just like maybe right before the pandemic, when Vivian Campbell's dealing with that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he's going for treatments all along, and he has good days and bad days.
Vivian Campbell, welcome to the ZXL Airwaves.
Why, thank you very much, Steve.
I am a 30-year fan myself, so first things first, for your longtime fans from the Dio era to Whitesnake, Thin Lizzy, and Def Leppard, we want to get an update. How are you feeling? How are you doing overall as you guys launch this movie project?
I am feeling splendidly well, thank you. I've been doing chemo for the last 6 months. I just finished it last week. I did my last treatment, and I'm feeling really, really good, and I've been very thankful I've been able to work through all this time and, continue to do shows and whatnot with Def Leppard and with Last in Line, the original Dio band. So that's been a catharsis for me, actually, to be able to keep on working and playing guitar, and I'm feeling good about it.
He's beating it. He's beating what he's going through, but it's a challenge.
Lars Ulrich of Metallica.
Orion, Atlantic City, Bader Field, 2012. And we are one of several stations on the Radio Row that were sponsoring and promoting this big festival hosted by Metallica. I was just talking to him about the San Francisco Giants in 2012 were like these World Series champions, and they were constantly, they were the cream of the crop of the National League at that time. And we were just talking about baseball. You're from San Francisco. Are you a Giants fan? Do you get to go to many of the games?
Been to the baseball stadium yet?
Yes, I went to saw the Giants play a couple 2 weeks ago, and I'm a bit of a fair weather fan. When they're in the World Series, I'll definitely go cheer them on.
And we talked about Orion. We talked about, hey, is this going to make this an annual thing?
We haven't gotten that far. I mean, it's like I can't see the forest for the trees. I mean, I just want to get through this weekend and have a great time and see if this whole thing works. It should work, and we're obviously very confident that it will work. We would love for it to become a yearly thing.
These guys are real, and they're not as intimidating as their handlers make out that they are,
We had a common encounter in 1994 at ZXL around the time of the Woodstock anniversary show that summer. The band Live, Pennsylvania band, pretty close to, the area that you were doing some
York, PA.
Yeah. They came to Wildwood to promote their new album, Throwing Copper. I don't remember if it was after or before Woodstock that summer. I don't know if it was early August or late August, but we have an infamous picture with them in the ZXL studios, the Wildwood studios. But there's a funny story behind Live coming to Wildwood. They came to the station, and then they were also performing at the Wildwood Convention Center. So because we're the presenting station, we have the opportunity to bring them on stage. And one of the local bands, Fuzzy Bunny Slippers, if I remember correctly, were the openers. And they were tied into the Block That Rocks, the big club scene over there on Pacific Avenue, Wildwood, which is where we did a lot of our promotions, and we did a lot of our promotions with. So us being the local station, those guys who own those clubs invited us to go ahead and produce and introduce the band, that night at the Wildwood Convention Center. So again, not knowing what we were doing at the time because of our fandom with another band that we were going to be traveling to Philadelphia to see in the round, Def Leppard. Steve, I think you did the introduction. I was backstage. You did the introduction. You came backstage and said, "Okay, let's go." We go out the back gate, the back door, get in your car, and we drive to Philadelphia, go to the Spectrum to see Def Leppard, while Live is performing in our backyard in Wildwood, New Jersey. We just didn't know at the time. We didn't know.
Right. I mean, to get on stage, introduce an up-and-coming band that we're going to hit big, and then let's go.
Yeah. So I mentioned the Block That Rocks. The Block That Rocks was a really big deal for ZXL. What did it mean to you?
First of all, we were allowed to connect with listeners. We were allowed to have relationships with the audience. And I remember the two guys that ran those clubs. I mean, they were just, they were super generous and super nice. The way I saw it was, how are they getting these artists in here?
Yeah.
They're famous.
Yeah.
They're famous. They're coming to Wildwood. And, like I mentioned earlier, 38 Special and Sam Kinison, he was huge at that point.
Yeah, well, like you said, those relationships that we forged in that community, the club scene at the Block That Rocks, the ones up the Parkway, the ones in Stone Harbor, the ones in Sea Isle, the ones, in Summers Point.
Every day from 9 to 9, win free tickets to the ZXL 10th anniversary concert event, Friday night, November 15th at Brownies by the Bay, featuring MCA recording artist The Wise Store. Get ready to make history with your South Jersey concert connection for 10 years. 100.7 WZXL.
Steve, it was Mike Ondeka, it was Barb LaRue, Dave Packer, Paul Kelly, Jake Gleason, Molly McLean, Nikki Neal, Ron Bowen, 30-pack Billy Mack. I mean, every personalities made it special. And this was great, Steve. Amazing radio career. Thanks for sharing, and welcome to Aircheck Season 5. We're going to have a lot more stories to hear about from our contemporaries in the episodes ahead.
I can't wait. You can follow us, stream, and download every episode of Aircheck on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Give us a great rating and share the show with a friend. We've uncovered some great radio stories with each and every episode.
This is Rich DeSisto.
And I'm Steve Raymond.
Talk to you soon.
Closing out another episode of Aircheck, a podcast about radio's personality from radio personalities. If you have radio stories to share, we'd love to hear from you. Join the Aircheck guest list. Email aircheckme@gmail.com. Musical props are Chris Gordon's. Announcer props, I'll take those. Greg O'Brien, the OB. Aircheck is the creation of RDPK Productions.